Tell me a little bit about yourself, kind of your background, and how you came to be in the role that you're currently in.
Wonderful. I'm actually originally from North Carolina, and I have always wanted to be in education. So, of course, went to college in Virginia for a while at Radford University to get my master's and also my bachelor's of science, and then found my way up north to receive more education. And then I became a teacher once I moved to New York State. So I was a teacher for about, 15 years, an English high school teacher. And then I found my way into administration and really started to move in that route. I was a director of curriculum, and then an assistant superintendent. And then I was hired here July 1st of 2022. So this is my first position as a superintendent and also in Seneca Falls.
So, where in North Carolina, if you don't mind me
No
asking?
worries. I was born in Winston-Salem, North Carolina.
My sister went to Wake Forest undergrad, Wake Forest Medical School. She did a residency at the Baptist Center. So
I'm
she's
very familiar with Wake Forest. I've been there many times. So I'm right near that area.
Winston-Salem is a cool town. Their
Yep.
downtown is very interesting. It's
Well,
like at the bricks.
all that area has really exploded that way. My some of my family still lives in Surrey County, which mountain area where Andy Griffith was born. So you'll hear a slight accent. I can't get rid of it, no matter how many PhDs I get. Doesn't matter.
You're still gonna have that accent. It's adorable. Okay, let's call it what it
Yeah,
is. So we're talking about staffing issues, right? At schools. This is not something that's um just we're just facing in Seneca Falls. This is something that's happening like across the board, right? Can you talk to
absolutely.
me a little bit about what's going on and potentially why you think this is happening?
Yeah, it's very interesting to me because I remember, like, when I was teaching, I just stopped teaching in 2015. So, there were still plenty of jobs. There were some jobs that were always harder to fill. There were certain subject areas that are unique, that required more expertise, like English as a new language or Spanish or French. I've always noticed that certain positions always needed help. However, it seems to me that since COVID, with all the changes with the pandemic, that exasperated staff shortages, especially in certain areas like mental health support, school psychologists, speech pathologists. We are still struggling here, particularly with English as a new language teachers. Still cannot find that particular, and it's just dependent on the area. Always need substitutes. And I know bus drivers have continuously been a issue for New York State. We still have that need, especially when people were getting sick. You could wipe out five drivers, you need drivers. So I think, honestly, the pandemic, from what I've seen, has exacerbated certain fields. And I think I've really seen, at least at this district, in counseling or psychologists. So those specialized positions seem the most difficult to fill right now, and they are. We're all vying for the same individuals, and it's pretty tough.
And so for you as a superintendent, do you have to get creative now? Like how do you go about coping with something like this?
Yeah, well, it makes it very tough. I mean, we obviously have contractual or budgetary limits, but starting to really look differently at how you interview, giving people maybe who are more green more opportunities. Not necessarily just looking at someone who's done this for 5 or 10 years, but really taking a look at those who think have potential. Um, so it's been more difficult, and just expanding where you're looking for. You don't just wait for them to apply to you. Reaching out to the local colleges. Hey, you have some students who want to be graduated in December, or June or whenever in the middle of the year. So I think you can't just wait for applicants to come to you anymore. You got to kind of say, like, hey, this program is producing some great candidates. Reach out to them, go to job fairs, expand your thoughts a little bit, not just waiting for the old paper, people mailing in. Those sorts of things are out the door right now. And to be honest, I think it's more really tapping into newer experience. And I think schools are going to have to be a lot more creative because there's so many options for individuals. What can draw you to a district other than money? Um, I won't say names or anything, of course, but I know if we've had a few applicants who said, sorry, I have to look at the bottom dollar right now because I have to make a choice for my family. So I get it.
You totally get it. You still have, roles that you have to fill. So it's probably really challenging.
Yeah, it's challenging. And I understand it's challenging for people as well, especially when you're in a smaller district, a little more remote um, than some districts. My last district was even more remote than this one, but you have the commitment to move to an area if it's not within a radius, and if you have a spouse and family, I think that makes that challenge even more. But really, I'm seeing more as like, education programs. I know they had a little dip in those who are going into education, but now I'm starting to hear there might be another uptick again. So, if they don't even have candidates, then how do you fill positions? There's are positions that you can consolidate, some you cannot. And hopefully state ed will be a little more flexible. They have helped a little bit, at least during COVID, they had like the emergency certifications that would sort of speed things along. But will that end this year? I know there's some waivers for how long someone can sub. Is that going to go away? So hopefully the education department will also understand those needs and help us in terms of flexibility.
Now, moving away from kind of staffing issues, like what else is kind of top of mind for you right now?
Yeah, I think for a school to, now again, I'm a newer superintendent, so 6 months into the position, and this year students were fully back for the first time after being hybrid. They started to come back last spring, but students are having to readjust themselves socially to in-person learning. I see that now in the mental health challenges, and I know this is not the first time you've heard this, that the challenges mentally, are exhausting those who are working in counseling and those as well. We're really tapping into our community a lot more and trying to get more community-based organizations to help out. Really, it's still that mental health piece. People talk about, unfinished learning. I don't like to say learning loss. I like to say unfinished learning. We are seeing those gaps for students. Just getting them here face to face has made a difference. But I think students need that extra support now because the world has changed and now you're back. And it's not just the social media, which you still have, but the face to face interactions. I think students are struggling to get back into that.
And why do you think that is?
Yeah, I think some of that obviously attributed to, I hate to keep going back to the pandemic, but it kind of changed the way people thought. Like, whoa, this can really happen. This can
Right.
really happen. Or things can be restrictive. Education may have to flip on a dime and change. It's not tried and true like you always thought it would be. So I think that's exasperated, like I said, exasperated that. And I just think that isolation probably didn't help a lot of students because they're very social, as you know. A lot of things we do in school is definitely academic, but that social piece is absolutely critical as well. So you're building relationships with other individuals, not just teachers, but other students. And when you don't have that piece, not that they didn't, but it changes that dynamic when you're not together as a community. And I feel the difference when I'm Zooming versus being in a building. It's just not the same.
No, it's not. And it's a lot of change that happened very quickly, I think, for a lot of, it's not just for young people, it's for for everybody. I think it's all people just readjusting and wondering, rethinking kind of what's permanent, like is it something going to change? And then is that going to be the new reality? It definitely changed a lot of things. So in terms of resources you were talking about in the community, um, are there resources in the community like that are helpful, beneficial? Is there more that can be done from a community perspective, or like how does that work with kind of getting everybody back and helping everybody adjust and making sure that people's mental health is being looked at, and students especially are, we're paying attention, and we're acting according to what we're seeing as educators.
Yeah, no, I see what you mean. And again, when I mean like community, like community-based programming, like even mobile dental counseling services, we're working with organizations in the community through our Office of Mental Health and our local department, health department and mental health to really help us to bring in individuals who can help support. For example, some of our students need counseling. They needed that before the pandemic, but even more so now. So providing it in school services is so that they don't have to necessarily drive somewhere, and getting them here, that has made a huge difference in terms of students having someone they could reach out to on a day-to-day basis. They don't have to necessarily schedule an appointment. They could be just go downstairs or go to the main office. So that is one of the pieces. We do work with individual who helps us to write grants. We're working with local colleges like Finger Lakes Community College, Northeast College of Health Sciences. We're all starting to have those conversations about, and they happened before I got here, but the need for those conversations are becoming more important. So
Yeah,
we are well on our way to work with people. United Way, you name it. It's people are stepping up, and that's one thing I admire about this community here.
oh, for sure. Finger Lakes Community College, they're very good. They're real cool over there. I've interviewed a couple different people. They try to stay on top of they try to keep a finger on the pulse of what's happening around them, which is very, very cool. Do you guys at Seneca Falls, do you have a school resource officer or you don't?
Yes, absolutely. I can't believe I forgot to mention that. Of course we do. We do have one full-time SRO, and we have been meeting. I met with the town and our Chief Peenstra, who's sadly going to be going to a new role after this month, to add another one for the elementary specifically. So that addition would be a part-time officer. So they put out some flyers for that position and some job descriptions out on the websites and Facebook. But we're looking for more because that's also very beneficial. And our current SRO, they love him. Students will go right to him. He supports everyone. But that additional SRO, I think that need, not just for safety, it's more about that community building.
Absolutely.
They're comfortable going to him too and talking and trying to build some good relationships there as well. But we really are looking, and I'm hoping if anyone listens to this, that we would have another resource officer apply, because I think that's made such a difference before I got here, and I see it in action. But the possibility of having another who could, because only one SRO can be in one place at one time across the 4 buildings. So the
Yes.
additional SRO would be wonderful. The police department have been extremely helpful.
It's a good community when you're in a situation like this and you're having I'm sure if you can hear the train outside, very loud. So yeah, so that's all well and good. So people can look on the website, they can look on Facebook at job openings. People who are, maybe thinking, oh, well, I wouldn't qualify for that role. Maybe now you do qualify for that role because things have changed a little bit, right? So, because I know growing up on Long Island, my cousin actually, trying to get a job on Long Island as a full-time teacher I've seen so many people try to do it and they're still full-time subs. So when you have a place like Long Island, it's really hard to find jobs, but maybe some of those people want to think about relocating. Hey, we've got jobs in education up here. Maybe the cost of
It's
living
beautiful.
is
Why wouldn't you
lower.
want to live here? It's beautiful. Seriously, one of the things I loved about, I was so lucky that I was the selected candidate.
Yeah.
But it really is. I'm not just saying that, it truly is a beautiful area. If you like lakes and lakefront, there's Canal Lake. It's just beautiful in this whole area, all of Seneca County.
And the cost of living up here is a lot more reasonable than it is downstate, like in the tri-state area. So, maybe it reaches people down there and we could get some of those rural spills. But anything else that we need to know? Any other information that you think would be helpful to put out there?
Well, I just think that, you have to have the right heart for education. I went into education because I always loved kids and I love teaching. I always felt like a natural teacher growing up. So to me, it's I miss that excitement about just working with kids and children. But I hope we'll get back there. I think right now it's just education is a great occupation to pursue. It's still a great livelihood. And in a small community like ours, we take care of our own. It's if you love a small town community feel, you're going to be welcomed. And I know our veteran teachers are really really go out of their way to help our teachers who are new and trying to keep them, connected so they want to be in smaller towns. But to me, it's just like, stay with education. It is worth it.
It is, and things are constantly changing, like we were just talking about. So one final question I wanted to ask you, it looks like there are some lawmakers considering a tax break for teachers. It says because staff shortage has reached a crisis level. This is across New York State. Without knowing too much about that, this is something that I think has just kind of been thrown out there. There haven't been any decisions made about this. Would you think that would be helpful if there was some kind of a tax break presented? Like, do you think that would be good?
Yeah, I think it would be good. Again, I know there's also talk about the waiving of, student loans and things of that nature has been thrown out there as well, which just nationally, those kind of things. Although I'm one of those people that paid every dime of theirs and, wish I a little sooner. But again, for teachers and in education too, because if you look at other occupations and salary ranges for professional occupations, it's not the highest pay. So I think a tax break would, if that would help, because really we're educating all those future occupations. So it all starts here. So to me, if that's going to help build those other professionals and other professionals in education, that should be considered.